everyone. Welcome back to another episode of Keep It Wausome. And once again, we are having one of our social distancing episodes brought thanks to the governor's safer at home order being extended. We're probably going to be doing a few more of these. My understanding here in Wisconsin is that we will be under a safer at home ordinance until May 26th. So we're gonna be stuck here a while, but that's okay because we're figuring out ways to do it with technology. I have with me today Joe Ellis. Joe Ellis is the founder of JEM Productions and quite the musician himself, as I recall. Besides doing live sound, isn't that correct?
A musician. I used to play a lot more than I do now, but
Okay.
it's kind of been part of my life for a long time. Yeah.
Well, Joe, tell me a little bit. We're gonna get into how you're handling. Actually, let's start with that. Let's talk about the your studio. When did you start your studio? How long has it been going?
It's kind of a choppy road, actually. There's not really one particular date because my adventure has taken me through lots of different morphings of where we're at today. Formerly, Joe Ellis Music was established in late 2011. So we could go by that. Its current state as JEM Productions, I think about 2014 is when we started operating as an entity and trying to build a business that brought us to where we're at today. Yeah.
And I think you were telling me before the podcast, now you mostly focus about 90% of what you do is on live events. You do lighting and sound, the whole shebang. Is that right?
Yeah, we try to be one-stop shop for all of our clients. And pretty much by live event, we just mean that there's people involved, one take generally kind of events. So it doesn't have to be a concert. We do work with corporate meetings, to weddings, filming, that kind of thing. But it's pretty much if there's something being documented and there's an audience, generally that's what we mean. So we'll support it with audio, video, lighting, staging, and a lot of behind the scenes logistics support, whatever that might mean. So I guess, a lot of people aren't familiar with what it takes to put an event on. So my goal as a company is for someone to call and say, hey, we're doing a thing. We don't know how to accomplish it. And I kind of like to stop them at that point and say, okay, I'm going to learn about your thing, but we're going to take care of everything for you so you can just focus on whatever your goal is at the end of it, whether it's, marketing or education for clients or employees, that type of thing. Yeah. We'll just take care of the rest of it so they don't have to worry about that. Yeah.
So we mentioned, events like weddings or corporate stuff. Well, a lot of that stuff isn't going on right now. What's your business look like right now?
Well, it's a hard stop, really. Anything entertainment. I think it's really interesting that, I think it was March 12th. We had events that we were loading trucks for the next day, and that next day canceled out of, at the time, was an abundance of caution. And by the end of that next day, there were national and statewide emergencies declared, and the entertainment industry came to a full stop immediately. So we were really one of the first ones to go down, just because by nature, groups of people follow our work. And so, we've just kind of been answering phones with canceled and rescheduled events every day at this point. So our operation kind of came into the warehouse in storage mode for a while, and we're just doing our best to prep and be ready for when we can get back to it and support everybody. So, yeah, we'll see.
But you guys pivoted to a pretty cool thing. Why don't you walk me through a little bit about this concert series that you put on?
Yeah, well, I mean, I don't think it's unique to us as a business, but when your market disappears, immediately we think, how do we stay relevant? How do we stay sharp? and how do we plan for the future, whatever that looks like, right?
Right.
And so I gave myself about, I don't know, a couple hours of, getting canceled calls and thinking, okay, how am I going to take care of my people, whether it's employees or contractors, and myself, to make sure that they don't have to worry, like I do as a business owner. I want them to be able to take care of their families and all of their bills as best they can. And second, we're in an art form where if you don't practice, just like if you're a guitar player or a vocalist, if you don't practice every day, you become less sharp. And on the production side of things and behind the scenes at an event, it's really no different. So that was my immediate concern: is if we're not out tomorrow working on our skills, then we're getting worse at our job, and that's not going to do our clients any good. In a month when we can come back at hopefully.
Right.
By
not practicing, I feel like you're talking to me.
Oh man, yeah. I mean, it's funny because I talk to people now that they're like, I haven't been able to play guitar in years, and this whole environment has allowed people to sharpen those skills because they're regular lives take them away from it. So
yeah, and I said that as a joke, but actually that has been the case for me too. I've been playing like pretty much every day, and I was just telling Harold, my wonderful producer, that I've actually been writing some music again for the first time in like 15 years because I've had some time on my hands. So yeah, it's I think a lot of people are in that boat. So we probably see a lot more musicianship and other things coming out of this, hopefully.
Man, I hope so. Yeah, I mean, it's it's those little gifts. Everybody says it, that you see the silver lining and all of this, and it's hard to do that, but
well, I think,
it's really cool.
I think a lot of people are, towing that line between, well, yeah, this is really hard on some. It's definitely hard on some people. I mean, I've taken a financial hit. My producer has. I'm sure you have as well. A lot of people are. But at the same time, it's like you have this gift of time. So, I really feel like you can't really change the situation. So you might as well at least try to take the positive that you can out of it. And the finances will return, I think. And that's really my viewpoint on it. I know that it's.
Yeah.
I know that's hard to think about sometimes. I know there's a lot of people really struggling, and I don't want to be insensitive to that, but it's like you get the cards that you're dealt, and you got to do what you can with them, I think.
Totally. And I don't know about you, but I ride that wave full spectrum several times a day. Where I'm going, I can't believe that everything is just on our schedule as a family right now, which I have 2 high school daughters, and my wife and I are both entrepreneurs. We have our own businesses, so we're both 2 ships constantly trying to grow our separate things. And so now we're all home, and I'll just we're all bouncing between that, where it's just like the kids are happy because they can do school on their time, and then someone will walk through the kitchen and be like, this really sucks. and I miss everybody. I miss the thing that we used to call life, So hopefully we can look back and I think we'll miss all of the things that that weigh heavy on us right now. If there's going to be a part of that we miss, because we're human, and it's hard not to just want to keep moving forward.
Oh yeah, I miss hugging people. I realized how many people I hug on a daily basis, just by the fact that now I can't. It's So I think there's going to be some renewed appreciation for some things.
Totally
Coming out of this, but speaking of making the best out of it, so these concert series you started I think it's a pretty cool idea.
Yeah. Sorry. So the long way to trying to keep busy. We saw the community. Immediately, there were needs and people that lost their jobs, and these kids, as soon as they canceled school, the thought is, we saw kids that weren't going to get their best meal of the day at school that following Monday.
Right.
And so we really just kind of wanted to find a way where we could keep sharp as a business, keep growing, maybe learn something new in this time. And since there's no revenue anywhere in our industry right now, we thought, well, maybe other people will kind of join us, seeing that as bad as things are for us, somebody's got it worse. And so
Yeah.
the thought was, let's see if we can find some musicians to come in. We'll set up kind of a makeshift TV studio in our warehouse and host a concert, partner with some nonprofits in the area, and see if we can do some good right away. And so, it's been really exciting. I think it's accomplishing, it's accomplishing everything for me personally that I love to do as a business, and as with my family, we love to do what we can to make sure we're giving back to our community. And it's been successful that we've been able to generate thousands of dollars directly to programs that are feeding our community and helping with domestic violence efforts. And I've seen a ton of growth from the guys around the shop learning new things, because we're blessed with that. So yeah, it's been awesome. The concerts have been a riot. You were awesome to stop by and catch some of Substyles show. We've seen there's so much talent around here that we get to showcase right now, and that's been pretty cool. So
Yeah, well, and one of the things, because I think a lot of people, there's a lot of bands right now doing different types of live streaming events, but to me, yours stands out because yours is like a full concert. Like there's lighting, there's sound. I mean, it's the full deal, and that really, when I watched the Substyle at home when I came back, because I went, for folks that are curious, I went during the sound check, which you guys were kind enough to have all the lighting going and everything. And so I was able to take some pictures during that. But when I went back and watched at home, it was like, it was really like I had my sound system on. It was like watching a concert from my living room. It almost made me think, wow, this would be really nice to have all the time.
Yeah, I would love to be able to do this all the time. We'll see where new normal for people is. That's
Yeah.
I feel really lucky that we have the resources to be able to, do the lighting and the video and have the audio component as part of it. I think what everybody's doing at home is amazing, and I take all of this out of it. I watch live streams of musicians sitting in their living room with their acoustic guitar or piano, and those are opportunities that we've never had before, because everyone was out doing their normal thing again.
Well, that's something I was saying to someone else just the other day. It's like, what would happen if this pandemic had happened 20 years ago? I mean, there's so many things that would have just shut down completely. At least we have the internet, and we have like an infrastructure to do some of these things. I mean, it's still obviously, like, I really don't want to be insensitive to people that are really suffering right now.
Yeah.
But there's always that side of it. 20 years ago, it certainly would have been worse.
Right. I mean, we don't know what isolation is, really. You know what I mean?
Right.
It's like, and there are people. I mean, here in central Wisconsin that they won't see this podcast because they don't have the technology to do it. You know what I mean? They would probably love to, but that's isolation, and they can't see all the. So it's like, to keep innovating, it would be so cool if we could find a way to reach those people and just get them the tools that at least we have to feel less isolated right now. I don't know what the answer is to that.
Yeah.
But yeah, I mean, it just goes back to, I feel pretty lucky overall to be able to do any of this right now.
So how much work had to go into setting up, like, setting up this studio to be able to do these live streams? How much was in place versus how much did you actually, like, what did it take to get everything ready to do that?
Well, we had to approach it a little bit differently, just because we knew this was going to be broadcast on film. So the set design itself, we had to put a little different thought into it. But as far as like logistics of setting it up, and just getting everything ready for the event, it's kind of what we do. So that really
did you basically have it set up already?
No.
Or is this is like what you would bring to an event? You just set it up in the warehouse, basically.
Exactly.
Is that, gotcha.
Yeah, pretty much. I mean, if you go, if you go into pick any hotel ballroom or the convention center in down at Stony Creek, you've got a big square room with maybe a stage in it. That's kind of what when we show up in the morning, that's what every venue looks like in its own form, and we turn it into something that looks completely different, transforms it so people, the goal is always someone walks into a room that they know well and they go, wow, I don't even know where we're at. You know what I mean? It looks different.
Right.
So our warehouse is no different. It's just a big shoebox with white walls, and now if you look behind me, you'd never know it. You know what I mean? So
right. Yeah, I was gonna say, folks at home, this is basically the set right behind you.
Right.
Yeah.
But it goes up just like any other concert, and we've pretty much just left it. We changed some of the programming each week, and depending on the style of music, when we had the jazz trio in here, we had to be really careful what we do with lighting and video to make it. It's not a rock show, so we wanted to make it more of a New York jazz club kind of feel, and so that's where the artistic part of like the growth for the lighting and video guys, that's where they get to keep sharp on that stuff. So yeah,
right.
Yeah,
what bands do you have coming up? How many more of these are you gonna do?
Well, this coming weekend we're gonna take a week off. As the pandemic numbers kept increasing, and people were getting kind of nervous, and we thought let's do a month, and then it was looking like things might just keep getting worse. So I thought it'd be a good time, to take a weekend off, give us all 14 days just to make sure that we are definitely healthy. It's a concern we have of people coming in and just amongst our crew, 6 people in their own homes. We don't want to spread anything to each other either. So we're just being cautious. We're going to take this weekend off. We're still going to do a live stream, but we're putting together 4 or 5 songs from each band that we've had over the last 4 weeks, and that's going to broadcast.
Gotcha.
We'll broadcast that, and just kind of regroup, and it. I mean, with today's orders of stay at home through May, we'll be actively looking to put 4 more weeks together after this.
And when you reach out to the bands, how do they usually respond to you for joining one of these shows? Are they usually like, hell yeah, or does it take some talking into, or?
Excitement, I would say 90%. Everybody, musicians want to play, and they all had everything canceled just like everybody else did. So, the first couple weeks, I think everybody was, like in shock, and they were all practiced up. They were ready to go. Van was still loaded with their gear. So that was pretty easy. And at that time, the virus hadn't really hit our area yet either. So there was just less concern about it. By week 3, bands were reaching out. I had a couple that I had to pull off the schedule just because it was starting to hit our area. They were connected in some way to someone who worked in a hospital system. And we just, there were these different thresholds that it's kind of a moving target on us all the time. And so we've had to cancel a couple, and we've had a couple artists pull out themselves just for getting nervous.
Sure.
Someone in a band is often in that high risk category,
Yeah.
and so they just can't get together and play. And like I said, it's just kind of this moving target that we're taking week by week.
Do you have anyone coming up that we can shout out that people should be watching for, or is that still under wraps?
Yeah, it's under wraps until probably
Okay.
Monday. It's
Gotcha.
so fluid, and we've been doing the same thing with the nonprofits that we partner with. We haven't really been announcing that until like Monday of the week, just because we're really trying to like stay flexible with the current community need.
Right.
And we don't know where that's going to be next week. I mean, if our hospitals gets hit super hard, we just want to be able to use whatever, little reach we can get, to just join the Army and help in that direction for the time being. So, everybody's been amazing. And there's, I have a lot of really talented people reaching out to me that would love to come in and participate. So I don't think we're going to have a shortage of really good quality shows if we keep doing it.
Are you keeping a running tab? Do you know how much you've raised total so far for all the charities?
I should have got a number for you. We're right around $5,000 total.
Okay, cool.
Which I think is awesome.
That is awesome.
People don't have a lot themselves, so I'm pretty floored
Right.
that anybody. These are individuals. Every dollar. We haven't had any corporate entities contribute to this. So it's, people opening up their own wallets and
Yeah.
we've had a couple donations, I think, that were like less than $5, which is amazing,
Yeah.
and we've had some really amazingly generous people too. So to get $5,000 out of 4 shows of donations to support different causes, I think it's wildly cool.
Yeah, I think that's fantastic.
Yeah.
Did you have a lot of people take advantage of the Facebook watch party feature? I know I tried to do one for Substyle. I don't think anyone joined it, but a lot of people liked it.
Yeah.
And I was like, well, no, you're supposed to come in and watch it with me. But
Honestly, I don't know how to track watch parties.
I don't know. Maybe it doesn't tell you. I don't know if that.
Yeah,
how that works.
I can see different metrics, and I'm trying to learn that part of Facebook's mechanism.
Right.
So I can see how many people we've reached with each posting. And a couple of those videos are up over 30,000 viewers.
Wow.
With
Wow.
reach. So I don't know if we can break that down, with geographic kind of things, just, but it'd be really interesting to dig into.
And people can go watch those now if they want, right? Like
Totally. Yeah.
Yeah.
Everything's posted on the JEM Productions page under the video tab. And I think Public Access in Wausome is going to be broadcasting each of the concerts, 3 or 4 times also. I think that's like channel 980 ish on Charter. So, and that has viewership range, I think, between like Eau Claire and Shawano. So they're reaching a ton of people too, which is really
awesome.
cool. Yeah.
No, I think one of the ways that a lot of people probably know you is from the Concert on the Square series. How long have you and Jem been doing that show?
This would be year 7.
7, okay.
I think. Might be year 8. But that was, I think, 2013 or 2014 is when we first forged that partnership. So it's been a little while.
What's it like doing that show? Because I have a personal connection to it since City Pages is the founder of Concerts on the Square, and for a long time we did it in partnership with Wausome Events. I think starting this year or last year, I'm not sure which, we kind of pushed that off more onto Wausome Events than us, but so we've had a big part. I usually go take photos there, just Just about every time, sometimes every other concert, but
Yeah.
yeah, it's a pretty cool event. I mean, what's it like being a part of that? And
It's amazing. I mean, anybody in Wausau knows, just what a deep tradition that is, and for me, after being there for 70 of them, it's
right,
it's just what you do on Wednesdays in the
right,
summer, and like early in JEM's existence, um, it was really an anchor of the business. That was my
right,
first big, what I considered my big contract. And really allowed me
hmm
the tools to kind of working in a bigger venue outside, and allowed us to really upgrade our equipment. All of that. So it was really exciting for me to have that catalyst. And now over the years, as we've just continued to grow, um, it's funny because that event it's so automatic at this point that it's
hmm
like zero stress, and I
right,
just get to go on a Wednesday night,
hmm
see a bunch of people that I'm used to seeing. A lot of people that I know pretty well after all these years. That's the only time I see them is on Wednesday night. So
Well, I always look forward to the superhero, Wasa's superhero showing up.
absolutely,
Like
yeah,
he's there pretty much every concert.
oh yeah,
One of my favorite photos I got a photo of him throwing his Thor hammer up in the air. I got it at just like the apex. It was like the hammer was like just in the setting sun. It was one of my favorite photos,
that's
and
awesome.
it's of him. Yeah, he's like, and he always hams it up. Every time I go there, he sees the
Oh,
camera and he's like, he starts posing because he wants his photo taken.
yeah,
It's pretty cool. But yeah, it's just it's a Wausau tradition. I know I've heard companies will purposely schedule interviews on Wednesdays for like recruits from out of town so that they
mm,
can take them to the concerts on the square and show them, see, Wausau's got cool stuff going on.
totally,
And
yeah,
it's funny because I think a lot of cities are clamoring for that kind of thing, and they're starting to develop those. And that's one of the things that Wausau has had for a number of years.
right,
And
yeah.
I don't know I'm not sure how long you've been in Wausau, but I remember when the square was when they first took down all those buildings, like there were a lot of people that wanted it to be just parking spaces.
Yeah,
And can you imagine if they had done that? What a waste.
yeah, yeah. I mean, it's
Yeah.
it's those little moves that I didn't live here back in those days, but it, looking at it now, it's like a core definition
hmm
of the culture
Yeah.
here. And I think that just when a community says that they're an arts based community, to have such a flagship area, it's not just about the Wednesday night concerts, but that whole downtown area that was built around the 400 block stage. I mean, they can point to that and say, "See, we mean it," you know.
Right. Right.
And that's really cool. So it is cool to see all the other communities, around the country now that point to Wausau and say we want to do that.
hmm
So
So the other thing that our viewers might know you from is the Joe.E. Christmas special, right? Like,
yeah, yeah.
tell me a little bit about how that came about, and tell folks that are familiar with it what that's all about.
Well, a very Joey Christmas is a Christmas concert that, again, it's a benefit that we do every December at the Grand Theater. And we partner with Toys for Tots of
hmm
Marathon County for that. So we've done everything we can to, keep that pretty much an admission cost of donating a new unwrapped toy for Toys for Tots. We've got, ebbed and flowed between being able to do it for free up to like a $10 per seat ticket charge. So that all
hmm
depends on where sponsors come in each year, and all the expensive
Right.
the things that we need to cover. So yeah, that's the root in that is very similar to what we did here with the live stream. Without going too far back, I've been a musician my whole life, and had a fully different career for 15 years before I got into music full time. And
Really, what did you do?
I was an airline pilot.
No kidding.
For 15 years.
Huh.
And so I would play music on my days off, but I could never really take it as serious as I wanted to,
Right.
So I had a job, and
Yep.
in 2012, well, we lived on the East Coast until 2010. Moved back to the Wausome area in 2010, and then I was commuting. I was still based in Norfolk, Virginia for work, so I was commuting back and forth out there, and I had recorded a couple of projects, and we released the first one when we first moved back here in 2010. But I could it was just kind of like met some really amazing musicians while we lived on the East Coast, and became good friends with a studio owner out there who's just an incredible guy, and just kind of a monster in the recording world. So I wanted to record with him, and that's kind of where my love of audio was really developed on that side of things as well, working with him. And anyway, getting back to the Toys for Tots, when we moved here, commuted for a couple of years, 2012, I developed severe vertigo and had to, what I thought was temporarily stop flying. And that too just happened overnight. One morning I was getting ready to go to work, and just everything started spinning, and, went to the doctor. Wow. And, long story short, I haven't been able to go fly again. But I thought it was going to be temporary. And so kind of like this COVID thing, I was like, well, how many opportunities am I going to get while I'm, not able to fly? I'm going to play more music, And so started doing more, and, this transition happened where it's longer time where it became, reality that I wasn't ever going to get my medical back to go fly. And in that 2 years that this took, I had started performing more, developed some really good relationships, with some sponsors, and they were taking us around and doing some cool shows. And I had bought some sound gear because I wanted consistent audio for all these little shows we were doing,
Right.
And then some people started saying, hey, can you bring some gear and run production for us? Because they liked what we were doing at our shows. And it was just this real natural crossover, into how JEM really got started. At the same time, it's like, well, we're playing music. And like, I think it was 2013, that fall, we started taking, the production side more seriously. And I'm like, okay, I'm not going to go fly, apparently. So I need to find a new career. I'm going to give up performing and just I'm going to put myself out there as a business and see what happens, next year. And so that led to Concerts on the Square and eventually this. So I wasn't quite ready to fully stop performing, but I thought if we do it, let's do one amazing show. I've met all these amazing people around the state, doing audio and playing. Let's see if we can get, like this super band together and do this Christmas show that's really unlike anything that ever comes through here. So sorry for the long answer. That's how that happened. It's nothing.
Well, that's interesting.
I mean, things just develop, and I think our hearts are always like, if let's do it for a bigger reason than ourselves, and it seems to be more fun that way anyway.
Yeah.
There's just less
Well,
stress involved, if you take your
yeah.
egos out of it and you're thinking about someone that you're helping. It's pretty cool.
Well, it's interesting because you went for two very unusual jobs. First first being an airline pilot, and then into music and sound and show production. I think that's really interesting. So being an airline pilot like kind of a lifelong dream when you were a kid, or how did that all come about?
It's all I ever wanted to do. Yeah. Um,
Yeah.
Flying is in my family big time. Uncles, my sister married an airline pilot. You know, grandpa and his, family. So it's just kind of
Hmm.
all I ever knew. And growing up, my dad was a corporate pilot for Weather Shield Windows in Medford, and
Oh
they
wow.
had a 8-passenger turboprop that was required one pilot, and he was there until I was 12, and then he got hired at United Airlines and worked there
Hmm.
forever. But in those first 12 years, when I was little, um, Weather Shield was super cool. They were like, if there's ever an open seat, you know, you can bring someone from your family. That's cool. So anytime there was a snow day or summer vacation, any chance I got, I was in that airplane going on
Hmm.
trips with them, and
Wow.
it just hooked me. Um, if we didn't have any passengers, I'd kneel on the seat and he'd let me drive, and
Nice.
fly through the clouds. And so yeah, I started when I was 14. My dad
Hmm.
started giving me real lessons, in a
Yeah.
Cessna, and got my license in high school, and um, off from there. Um, so yeah, that was I never. I'd still be doing it
Right.
if I could. It's my favorite thing in the world.
Was there ever a moment where I guess what would be like the scariest moment you've had of your career? Was there ever a situation like that where you were like, oh my gosh, this is frightening?
Several, yeah.
Yeah.
I mean, I could tell stories for a couple hours if you
Hmm.
want. There are a couple that stand out. There were different levels, I guess. When I was first captain of a small cargo operation, I was based in Columbus, Ohio, and had a super inexperienced co-pilot. It was like we got called out at like 2 in the morning during a snowstorm, and we had
Oh
to
man.
de-ice the airplane like 3 times before we actually could go take off. And
Yikes.
as soon as we took off that night, I don't remember where we were going, but we pulled up the landing gear, and the inside of the airplane filled up with smoke.
Oh
And
no.
you know, the guy I was flying with, he had, like I said, no experience, and he kind of
Yeah.
froze up. And to get in the airplane back that night was pretty intense. But that turned out to be nothing. It was
Really?
there wasn't a real fire. It was just some leftover gunk in a heating duct from the maintenance guys. So
So what
thankfully
happened?
there
It
was.
just it just clear out eventually, or what?
Yeah, I mean, we hauled around and landed as though there was a fire,
Oh, okay.
but thankfully there wasn't. I mean, we weren't like truly in danger.
Hmm.
The hairiest thing I've ever been in that was pretty wild was when I was flying a regional jet full of people from Milwaukee to Charlotte one March, and halfway down we started getting warnings, and one thing started failing after another. This is up at cruise altitude, and the things we were
Hmm.
seeing were not supposed to be able to happen, apparently, because we were
Oh,
on the phone with our maintenance people describing what we were seeing through these failures. And I remember at one point things were getting real bad, and the guys told me that they said that can't happen, and you don't want to hear that.
no, you don't.
So long story short, by the time we were
Hmm.
descending into Charlotte, there were thunderstorms and the weather was terrible, and we had no instruments left. Things were failing like crazy, and we had to land almost down to no visibility in Charlotte on the backup to the backup system, which is something that you don't train for. And on top of that, the computers were so messed up and confused in the airplane that the fuel control to the engines was confused, and I kept adding more and more power as we're getting into land, and it just kept losing power on us. And so I had no instruments. I'm losing power, and we're about 4 miles from the airport, and I realized that, like, at the rate we're losing things, I don't know if we have 4 miles left in us,
gosh.
And I remember for a second, well, let me back up. What happened was we got about 3 miles from the airport, so we're 900 feet above the ground, and we broke out of the clouds, and I could see the runway, and that was the best feeling in the world because we've been flying on like no instruments for the last 40 minutes.
Right.
And so I'm like, okay, we can see, and that's when I realized that we're running out of power. And for just 1 second, I remember thinking, tomorrow's my daughter's birthday, and we're not going to make the runway,
Right.
And immediately, I thought, you can't think about that, fly the airplane. And anyway, we landed, we made it, and the airplane was so confused. I mean, it started telling us that things were on fire as we're taxiing into the gate. It was telling us that there were fires, and there weren't.
Wow.
That's my scariest story.
That's a pretty scary one.
Yeah.
Jesus.
So
airplanes are no joke.
No.
Like so my airplane story, and it's kind of a sad one. I was covering the Stevens Point Air Show one year, and I was interviewing some of the pilots, and my main interview was with the stunt pilot. He had flown in the Air Force, I believe, and had been doing stunt pilot work for a long time. And I remember asking him, I'm like, well, do you ever worry about crashing when you do these crazy stunts? And he goes, oh no, I don't think about that. And I felt kind of bad. I've always felt kind of bad asking him that, so I went back. I had all my interviews. I interviewed a couple other people there. Went back to the office, and I was writing up the story, and then I heard I heard over the police scanner that an airplane had crashed. And so of course I had to gather my stuff and go back out there, and it turned out to be the guy I interviewed. Man. It was like unbelievable. I'm like, I can't believe I was just talking to this guy an hour ago, and obviously he didn't survive.
Yeah.
The one positive out of that was the photo I took of him before he died. Like, the family ended up using it at his funeral, and his sister called me and was like, thank you for taking that photo. Like, it's like the last photo of him that anyone has. And I'd read this really long story about him the next day. Like, I called all his friends and family, and it's like those are like the hardest calls, because they're grieving, but they also want to like say words about the person. So like, you feel good about doing it too. But yeah, those are tough moments. But I'll never forget that. Every time I look at an airplane, I think of that moment.
That's crazy. I remember when that happened. That's wild that you were tied so close to that.
Yeah, I mean, literally an hour. An hour apart. It's like that one. Made me sit back and think a little bit, I think.
Yeah. It happens quick.
Yeah, I give a lot of credit to people that can fly airplanes. I had a friend in high school who his dad was a pilot, had a pilot's license. I don't think he had instrument rating, and then he got really into it, and he got his private pilot's license. And he used to fly at Wausome Airport, and I went up with him a couple times. It was pretty fun.
Oh, yeah.
He let me steer it a little bit, just to get a feel for it, and not much, obviously.
That's
so
awesome.
We didn't crash, but but it was pretty neat. I haven't been up in a private plane like that in a very long time. Of course, I've flown to places for trips and stuff like that, but Yeah, but yeah, it's a really interesting. The whole flying world is really interesting. One of my favorite comedians, I guess, is flying helicopters now too. So
Oh,
I
really?
hear he talks about that on his podcast a lot. And
Hmm.
yeah, I don't know. It's interesting. It's an interesting world for sure. But
Yeah.
I think you're probably a little safer now being in the music world. You can
Yeah.
stay on good old terra firma here.
Yeah. I am a terrible flyer now. I like vacations if we can drive. You know, I I'm terrible with TSA. I'm terrible with
Oh,
like parking ramps and just,
yeah,
you know, if
I hate
it,
all that.
like turbulence. I mean, I'm terrified. Yeah. Now, you know, when you're,
Is it hard? Is it hard for you because you're used to being in control? Like if you get turbulence, you're the guy with the hand on the joystick, so you're controlling it. Or
yeah, I mean, it sounds
yeah,
terrible, you know, but it's totally it is a control thing, you know.
yeah,
And just I think knowing, you know, there's so many little issues that come up routinely, and it's not unsafe. It's just things that happen. You know, it's a
yeah.
complex machine, so you know those pilots are putting out, you know, problems all the
Hmm.
time, and we're just in the back watching movies, you know. And
Right,
so I'm in the back thinking something's wrong. They're working on something,
right.
and this could go really bad.
Mhm.
And my wife
See,
is just like, "You need to relax."
see, you can't know how the sausage is made. That's the problem.
Exactly. Yeah. Yeah. Seriously. And
Yeah.
riding, I mean, it's always been like when I was commuting,
Hmm.
when we lived here and I was still working in Virginia, you know, I was spending so much time commuting. And like if I had, I think all pilots have like nightmares of crashing, you know, and like
Yeah.
flying into telephone wires or something like that. And
Hmm.
my nightmares were always riding in the back, commuting to work. You know, if I was going to crash in
Right.
a dream, it was never with me flying. It was always riding in the back, and
Interesting.
that was our biggest fear of, you know, getting in a crash, just riding around somewhere. You
Well,
know, so
I'm
I don't
like
know.
that. I'm like that too because I don't like roller coasters, or I've never wanted to like bungee jump or jump out of an airplane or something. Like I like things that I'm like if I'm going down like a crazy mountain biking thing, I like that because I got my hands
Yeah,
on
yeah,
the handlebars and I'm controlling it. So I'm exactly the same way.
yeah, totally. Yeah,
Yeah.
I mean, you just people, yeah, just gotta trust. You just gotta trust people and get over that at
Yeah.
some
Right.
point, you know.
Right.
But yeah, it's you know, being out of that for so long is yeah, it's changed how I view it. But I'm so
Mm.
thankful that, you know, that career. When it comes to doing what I'm doing now, I think that my whole
Mhm.
life training to be a pilot helps me. You know, I give so much credit to that training and, you know, that way of thinking to what I do as a business owner, and just mixing events live as an audio engineer. Um, I lean on my aviation training more than I mean. People are always surprised, but it's like I lean on that so heavily, and when I
Mhm.
think about it, it's because as a pilot, you're trained to always be 100 miles in front of the airplane. Think about what's coming. You're traveling
That makes
fast, so you're
sense.
thinking about next steps, and so while you're doing one thing here, you're thinking about, you know, the landing in an hour. And so I apply that with music because I can be working on, you know, a drum sound, but I'm able to just pay attention naturally to the rest of the band and see that the keyboard player is about to, you know, go into, you know, some kind of riff, and or just hear it, you know,
All
and at
right.
the same time think of, you know, paying attention to the event manager that's over off to my
Hmm.
right while all this is happening on stage, and
Hmm.
being in tune with what they're thinking and how the audience is responding. It's that multitasking and, you know,
So
putting out a lot.
now you're 100 beats ahead instead of 100 miles ahead. Yeah.
Exactly. Yeah.
100
Yeah.
beats
That's
ahead.
that's the goal. Yeah. Yeah. Uh,
So to shift it back to music a little bit, I think one thing I want to start asking when I have musicians on my podcast or people in that industry, what's an album that you would recommend that to people to check out that's maybe come out in the last few years that you're really into?
Oh man. Oh, man, you just dropped a bomb.
I know I did. Here, I'll give mine so that you have a little time to think about it.
Okay.
Like I'm really there's a new album came out in 2019 from the new Pornographers, and it's just excellent. I can't think of the title right now.
Okay.
I probably should have pulled that up. I just kind of thought of this now, but it came out in 2019, kind of toward I want to say summer. But if you go into Spotify and look at their 2019 release, you'll see it.
Okay.
Really great. I love layered and textured sounds. I love like a high level of production. That kind of stuff like really gets to me.
Oh, that's cool. Yeah. Text that to me because I don't want to forget. And I'll look that up.
I will.
A band that I discovered about a year and a half ago. I don't know when their latest release was, but a group that's really impacted me is called the Revivalists. I don't know if you've heard of them.
I've heard of them. I don't know if I've checked out any of their stuff.
They are just the. Man, I don't know. I don't want to misclassify them according to their brand, but it's like retro rock meets this rootsy, unbelievably powerful lyrics, like all mixed into one. But they're super amazing. When I heard them, it's just like, you'll hear these bands sometimes, you'll just be like, wow, I've never heard anything like that, And they've had a huge impact on just what I listen to and kind of getting back to, just clean, straight rock and roll stuff with just really thoughtful lyrics. I think, telling stories really matters,
So Joe, I don't want to age you, but I think you're probably about the same age as me. Were you a teen in the 90s?
I was yes.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Gotcha.
So
your Gen X range, so to speak.
Yeah, probably. Yeah, maybe the older end, I guess. Maybe I'm a 95 grad.
Gotcha.
From high school.
A couple years older than me, but not.
Okay.
I graduated in '97, but
okay.
Yeah, I've been. I don't know if you've had this experience, but I've been kind of going back and appreciating some of the music that came out in the time that I was, that I was coming up, that I didn't appreciate in the same way that I do now. One album that I've really been getting into is Alanis Morissette's "Jagged Little Pill."
Oh wow, yeah.
I didn't realize that Dave Navarro and Flea played on that album. Well, actually, they played on one track.
Wow, I did not know that.
Yeah, I had no idea.
Yeah. Huh.
But I've been like, it's a pretty darn good album.
That's cool.
And, it's very, it has, it's definitely a pop album, but it very much has that 90s alternative aesthetic. There's some and the production on it is just fantastic.
That's cool. Wow. I'll have to check that out again too.
Yeah, I know. I re-listen to it with some headphones, and you'll be like, "Oh my gosh, there's a lot going on in that album."
Oh, that's awesome.
I didn't really think about.
Yeah.
So, well, cool.
Yeah. Appreciating music is real quick, like funny story that I probably shouldn't tell, but I remember sitting in my neighbor's garage with my brother and a couple other neighbors, and I grew up on like Springsteen and old Bon Jovi and Lou Reed, whatever my dad and uncles were listening to at our cabin all the time. It was just like a really good storytelling, straight rock and roll kind of stuff, and so we were pretty into that, and we had a neighbor kid from our neighborhood who was like a metalhead, late 80s, early 90s. This was probably in the late 80s. And so we were all sitting in my neighbor's garage, and, this one kid was going off on how, amazing, like Motley Crue and Poison and these bands are. And I was so angry, and we got in this huge fight, and we pounded this poor kid because he liked Motley Crue, because it was like
Jesus.
never would I listen to that, And it's funny because like now I listen to it and completely appreciate where he was coming from. You know what I mean? He was right, And so I don't know. That's your middle aged like reflection and feeling like sorry for being such a punk.
Well, I was just telling someone else, like I was, I was bullied in like grade school because I was like super into Buddy Holly and Elvis, but mostly Buddy Holly. Like I was just obsessed with Buddy Holly, and now I have kind of the Buddy Holly glasses, which is kind of funny. But it just got a kick out of it.
Totally.
And but yeah, like now it's like that retro. Now even like the stuff from my childhood, like the '80s, is coming back and is popular again. And one of my millennial coworkers said something like, "Wow, the '80s must have been awesome," and I was like, "Well, kind of."
Yeah, depends how you mean awesome.
It wasn't. It wasn't all like Stranger Things, believe it or not.
You're right. Yeah, totally. Yeah.
Well, hey Joe, this was a lot of fun. It was really great having you on.
Oh, thank you.
If people want to follow you and your work, what's the best way for them to do that?
Well, right now, if you are on Facebook, you can find us at JEM Live Events.
And that's JEM.
JEM, yeah,
JEM,
and that's Joe Ellis Music is where that comes from.
That makes sense.
Yeah, so
it's a little sad that I didn't put that together until just now.
Apparently, there was an '80s cartoon character Jem too that I hear about once in a while.
I've heard of that.
And that one, I was too busy on Thundercats back in the day to
me too
to see that one. So but yeah, I mean, join us on Facebook if you want to see these live streams. As long as we keep that up, I would say, I try and post as many pictures and video clips of some of the cooler things that we do throughout a typical year. But it's not the most exciting place. It's a business page and some pictures of, geeked out stages. So, but yeah, we'd love for people to come over and definitely stay in tune with some of the work we're doing right now.
Cool. Hey, make sure you guys go check that out. Check out them on Facebook, and you can go watch some of those concerts. They're pretty fun. I mean, especially if you have your computer hooked up to your TV. I mean, it's like just watching. It's like turning on the TV and watching a local concert. And that's an experience that you can't get very often. I'm BC Kowalski. You can follow us on Facebook. Keep it Wausome. If you're watching on YouTube, hey, make sure you give us a like and subscribe to the channel if you're not, so you can see all the videos that we put out. And if you're on Spotify or iTunes, give us a like or a star rating or whatever it is they have available. I'm not even sure. And thanks so much for listening, and thanks to having Joe on. And also thanks to my producer, Harold Mello. His band is Substyle. You guys should go check out their stuff on Spotify and all the other music streaming sites. So thanks so much, Joe.
Thank you, Brian. Thanks for having us. See you this summer.
Hey, and the last thing we always do, I always make my guests say, "Keep it Wausome." So keep it Wausome, Joe.
Oh, keep it Wausome.
All right, thanks, guys.